you very much. Democracy in the Sahel region, a tool for political stability, is our topic. For discussing and moving this conversation forward, joining us are two very important gentlemen. First, Professor Emmanuel Remi Aiyede, a professor of political institutions, governance, and public polity at the Department of Political Science, University of Ibadan, where he serves as a HOD. He's a fellow of the Pan-African Scientific Research Council. Joining us via Zoom, welcome, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to have you. Good. And also joining us Mr. MESSIE KOMLAN, the General Secretary of West African Civil Society Forum. He's an expert in strategy management, business transformation in both public and private sectors, both locally and internationally. Professor, welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Dapper, and in fact, I'm almost feel intimidated sitting next to you the way you look.
No, I'm just a simple human being. Thank you.
All right, so let me start asking you with the first question first. Why has democracy in the Sahel region not been able to deliver stability across the region?
Basically, I think that, democracy has to be practiced and maintained. Yeah. We have noticed that the practice of democracy in our region has not been well done in many countries because of different items. Let's say the participation of the citizen and bad governance, corruption in many countries. And if we take our region, for example, West Africa, as a main example, we've seen many modifications of constitution in many countries, and nobody actually denounced that. When I say nobody, citizens did, but ECOWAS did not denounce that, for example. And corruption in many countries, citizens have been protesting, denouncing all those things, but generally, citizens are not listened very well. So that brings a kind of frustration. And so expression of frustration, generally when the parliament is working well, different opinion can discuss in the parliament. But in many countries also, the parliaments are monocolor. I mean, it's just one political party.
All right.
So that those are kind of diagnoses of bad governance in our region, and that brings problems.
Okay. Professor Emmanuel, do you agree? Professor Emmanuel, do you agree? Yeah.
Yes, to some extent. But we must also recognize the fact that democracy cannot succeed if it does not translate into economic progress, if it does not translate into prosperity for ordinary citizens. And you know, in many of these states in the Sahel region, democracy is also competing with challenges of insecurity. And if you are also unable to guarantee the security for the majority of citizens, then the legitimacy of the government and of the state itself will be called into question. And I think that's one major factor that requires some emphasis.
Okay. All right, understandable. All right, Mr. KOMLAN, I'm going to ask you next. Your organization is like an umbrella body for a lot of civil society groups in West Africa, and you regularly interface with ECOWAS, on a daily basis on how you can improve civil society participation and eventually improve the ordinary citizens' participation, in governance. I'm going to ask you now from a practical perspective, from dealing with ECOWAS, why has ECOWAS not been able to effectively deal with these issues of unconstitutional seizure of power, unconstitutional elongation, and all these issues that has put democracy in threat and eventually, beyond democracy, the betterment of the life of the African citizen?
I think that ECOWAS, by its structure, has some things to change. Meaning that currently, there are many organs within ECOWAS, and the decision makers, the ultimate decision makers, is the Council of the Head of States. And when we talk about democracy and the practice of democracy in our countries, for example, when there are modifications of constitution, who actually modify those constitutions? It's the Head of States in many countries. So the Head of State, currently, with the mechanism we have in ECOWAS, they cannot punish themselves. So it takes something, a kind of something to oversight all that thing.
Okay.
So that is the way, and even we noticed that the head of state, they even noticed that in September 2021, and they want to reform the ECOWAS, you know, the protocol of the additional act of protocol of good governance and democracy. So this is a good step.
But what kind of changes do you think they would need to do for that to be effective?
I think we need to find a mechanism of oversight on the decisions or actions of, I would say, the head of state, because they are currently perceived as a club, old boy clubs, or a club of union, which might not be true, but they need to demonstrate the contrary, the opposite of that. Citizens need to be reassured that the head of state are working for them. So that demonstration needs to be done.
Professor Emmanuel, has ECOWAS become an old boys club, and do you think ECOWAS has what it takes to reform itself to become effective?
I think that's a big challenge. The discussion has always been around moving from ECOWAS being a union of government to being a union of people. Looking at the organization, not just from the perspective of government, but also the perspective of the interaction among citizens that constitute the states that constitute ECOWAS. We have not been able to move in that direction. I think it's largely still a union of government. And you know, when they go into all of these meetings, not everything is put in detail. For instance, this idea of elongation of the term of office has been a recurring issue that ECOWAS government has not been able to address. And I think until we begin to put things relating to such authoritarianism in the principles of democracy and good governance, I won't be able to make it again. What normally happens is that when those issues come to the table, they either shy away from it or they reach a stalemate and everybody goes home. I think that we are beginning to see greater challenges to the states arising from non-state actors. It is time for them to become much more realistic in recognizing that they have to move beyond an old boys club into something that has to relate to the aspirations of ordinary citizens. So we need to mobilize civil society and mobilize citizens as the foundation of government. If we continue to look at the organization as simply a union of government, then we will not be able to address this issue. Because right now, it is not just that the governments have not performed, it's also that the threats from non-state actors, especially terrorist groups and extremist religious groups, come so strong. So we need to mobilize people to support government.
All right, which brings me to my next question, Mr. Coleman. Why was ECOWAS not able to predict and prepare for the various issues of terrorist insecurity all across the sub-region? What happened to ECOWAS' ability to do that?
I think we have to recall that there was a crisis in Libya.
Yes, there was.
Libya was bombarded by France-led coalition, which was a wrong decision at that moment. So we are currently collecting the consequences of that. That is one thing. So for ECOWAS, we think that the practice of ECOWAS makes the ECOWAS to be disconnected from the people. ECOWAS Vision 2020 aimed to have, the Vision 2020 was to have ECOWAS of people. They failed on that. And now that has to change. So to do that, they have to listen to citizens, not just listen to CSOs or civil society organizations that are playing music in their houses. They have to connect with real people, to discuss with them with non-arrogance, to make sure that they respect civil society opinion, because civil society people, they are not a second zone citizen. They are real people, well educated, that have opinion to contribute to our countries. So ECOWAS need to reconnect with real citizens, with normal citizens, to bring real added value in the lives of citizens. Currently, that's not the case.
Wow, that's a lot. So, Professor, I'm going to ask you a question. Is it impossible to deliver quality leadership all across the ECOWAS sub-region? Is it achievable? And if it is not, what are the hindrances? Why has it been so difficult for us to have leaders in the capacity that would be able to do this for us? Because if we're going to reform ECOWAS, we're going to need leaders to do so. We've tried military era. A lot of young people talk about a revolution, but we've seen some kind of revolutions in some parts of Africa, and it's not really played out as we thought it would be. What will it take to get effective African representation working for African people?
I think for a very long time we have talked about African solution to African problems. And when we talk about this problem of insurgency, terrorism, and so on and so forth, you remember there was a time we thought about setting up the ECOWAS standby force. And there were regular meetings of the Chief of Defense Staff of the various states, so that we can begin to put the structure in place to address issues like this. But the event seems to have overrun the process of planning by the heads of state. And it is not a problem that we can limit to the regional level. If you go to our various states that constitute ECOWAS, you'll find we have similar problems. What the leadership problem that we have at the individual state level is actually what is translating into the ECOWAS level. If you look at the problem of insecurity in Nigeria, for instance, we consider the number of options, including military reforms and all of that. The process has been extremely very slow. So until we begin to deal with the leadership question, and we have to deal with this simultaneously, both at the national level and at the ECOWAS level. The lesson to learn is that now that there's a clear and danger, a clear threat, to the stability of this region, I think it is time for leaders to wake up because the consequences are very grave, not only for them as in terms of the position of leadership they occupy, but also in terms of the life chances of ordinary citizens. So we are getting to a threshold where we can no longer sleep. We really need to rise up to the leadership challenge by addressing this threat to the existence and survival of our various states. I do hope that when they meet, it's not just about peace, it's about also building institutions to address these pressing challenges. And when you also see the reaction of the West, for instance, remember when the coup occurred in Mali in 2020, when before that, when the place was overrun by extremists, we had to rely on France. I think it's time for them to begin to see that these previous colonial leaders are not likely to be very reliable.
All right.
When we have serious problems, so we need to rise up to.
Okay then, thanks. Let me ask. You talked a lot about we need to get the leadership issue right. From civil society point of view, how can we make that happen? Practical step, because we keep getting it wrong. So, but you guys are on the ground. You guys are interfacing with ECOWAS. How can we get the leadership question right?
I think that it comes to be connected with real citizens again. Okay. People are put in jail in many countries because of their opinion that are not necessarily the same opinion of the ruling.
Yeah, that's my point. So if I'm being locked up for, saying this is right and this is wrong, how can I then get good leadership?
So we are calling on the authorities in all the countries in ECOWAS region today. We are calling on them to really listen to the citizen, even if a citizen has an opinion that they don't like, they have to listen. They have to listen, because not listening to citizens, others will listen to those citizens. And that will bring problem in our country. So get connected to the country, to the citizen life is the only way to go. And that leadership thing we're talking about, that is also a demonstration of leadership. Listening to people is also a signature of leadership.
All right, thank you very much. Professor Emmanuel, we're almost out of time. So in the next 30 seconds or so, what would you like to say to the ECOWAS leaders and to the ECOWAS people in 30 seconds? Yeah,
I would like to speak to the elites of West Africa. They must recognize that the state belongs to us, and it is in every society, it is the elites that determine what happens in society. They have the resources, they have the connection, they have the education, they have access to leaders. I think it's time for them to begin to organize as members of civil society, to speak to those leaders, to reach some kind of consensus on what should be done and how they can mutually support or challenge bad behavior, support good behavior and challenge bad behavior among the leadership, so that we can begin to move. It's very important.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor. Monsieur, your last words.
Yeah, I think
African, to the ECOWAS citizens and the leaders.
Yeah.
The camera.
Okay. We are calling on our leaders, our head of state, to give more space to citizens, to open the civic space, to make sure that our democracy is sustainable by getting citizens up when even all the when the opinion are not necessarily at their taste. They have to listen, and that is the way we bring an inclusivity in our countries, and that is the way we open the civic space to have new leaders emerging to help those current leaders in order to make our region sustainable, peaceful, and economically developed.
Thank you very much, Monsieur. Thank you very much, Professor. It's been a wonderful conversation, and we hope to have this conversation some more and push it forward. Right now, we will be going from this wonderful conversation. It's an epic time for Africa. We need to move from what we've been doing in the past. The world is waiting. The world is no longer going to tolerate our excuses, and our citizens are dying. It is the moment. New leadership must rise. Leadership must evolve. Now it's time for us to move to our social media handles. I think this one's from last week or so when we talked about the rice revolution, and we have Lanre Babatunde from Oyo Town, and you spoke about the rice revolution. Yes, there's a rice revolution, and we're going to have a price revolution in the rice factor as well. Thank you very much, Lanre, for reaching out to. I have Udofia, okay, thank you very much. You say Udofia, you're in Lagos, you love lands in Africa, and you like to see us come to, you like to see us come to your village to explore the beauties of your land. All right, Udofia, we'll try that. Anyway, that's as much as we can take about social media. Like I said, most people don't put their names. We need you to put your names when you send in your messages on WhatsApp. From all of us here in the studio is have a lovely one. See you next time.